I don't know if anyone else has made a theory like this, but if they somehow have, and if this brilliant idea of mine has somehow already been thought of, then first of all, I'm going to be really sad. But second of all, credit to that person for making the theory. I had no idea. I'm literally just thinking of this theory right now. I wrote down a bunch of notes I got to talk about in this video, and I'm about to lose my mind because, oh my god, this might be the greatest Berserk theory I have ever heard, and it's coming from me. I'm recording this video on July 1st, so in case some other YouTuber decides to come up with this theory a day after me and post it before me, then I'm absolutely gonna cry. But just so you know, this is being recorded on July 1st. It's probably gonna come out a bit later than that because it takes a minute to edit my videos. But let's talk about what I perceive to be the greatest Berserk theory that has ever...
Stop right there, criminal scum!
Remember when I made a video of Attack on Titan saying this is the best Attack on Titan theory you've ever heard? This is the best... I think I'm best known for my AoE content, especially in this medium, but I don't really do AoE content anymore, let alone AOT content, because AOT's anime is finished a long time ago and the anime won't continue for quite a while. So I'm focusing on Berserk right now, and because I love doing theory videos, here's a theory video on Berserk and how Griffith will betray the Godhand and how the Godhand are manipulating Griffith. So yes, those are the two main ideas behind this theory. Griffith will betray the Godhand, and even before that, the Godhand have been manipulating Griffith, and once Griffith finds that out, which he already might have, he will end up betraying the Godhand. So let's go back and actually analyze why I think this. So as we know, Griffith has always had this great dream, and the dream has essentially been that he was going to make his own kingdom, or he was going to get his own kingdom, and this dream of his has basically made up his entire character up until this point, and has been a crucial part of his character, if not the most important part of his character. He's sort of taken that protagonist role where he is the one with the dream, and Guts is kind of the one with no dream and is trying to find one for a good portion of the story. But with Griffith having this dream, he eventually sacrifices what he already had to achieve this dream, and what we assumed at the time was that Griffith did this because it made a lot of sense to his character, which it definitely did. He was someone who was willing to give up anything it took to get his own kingdom, and this theory does not undermine that fact. It does not say that Griffith was fully pushed into doing this by the Godhand. What it's saying is that the Godhand were responsible for keeping Griffith on this path. If you want to use a metaphor to explain it, imagine Griffith walking down a path and he's beginning to sway off the path a little bit, but the Godhand members are there to keep him walking on that path no matter what. So how are they able to do this? How are they able to keep Griffith going, and how did Griffith even fall off his path in the first place? Well, it's after Griffith is tortured and stripped of his ability to basically do anything, where he really begins to question the importance of his existence and the purpose of life in general. And most importantly, the dream. He begins to question the importance of getting his own kingdom. And once he's being tortured by the king, you can see a few panels here where it seems almost as though Griffith does not care about anything anymore, and that includes his own dream. Because at that point in time, the dream of his that he has so longed for becomes less and less important to him. There's something else that becomes more and more important to him, and that thing is not a thing, but it is a person. It is Guts, and that's where Guts comes into the picture with this theory. If we take a look back to Griffith's idea of what a true friend really is, he mentions himself that it is somebody who is equal to him in both body and soul. That was one of the grandest lines in all of Berserk, and one of the most important lines too, because in my opinion it will lead to how Berserk ends, which will be another video coming up, but it is also crucial for how this story will continue to go. And because Griffith believes that a true friend is something like his equal, this is why he continuously envisions Guts whenever he thinks about his dream. And the most prominent example of this, the best example that I could find of this idea, is chapter 49 of Berserk in the Golden Age arc, where Griffith is trapped inside of his cell, and where we dive a little bit into Griffith's backstory, just a little bit, and where it's sort of like his own monologue for that portion of the chapter. This is probably the most important part with this theory, if not one of the most important parts at least, because it is so crucial to understanding Griffith's character. And I feel like this is a misunderstood chapter in terms of Berserk. There are a lot of misunderstood chapters because there can be so many meanings with what Berserk has. It's so nuanced, but this situation is certainly something that is crucial to Griffith's character, and let me explain why that is. We dive a little bit into Griffith and how he really began to envision the castle and where his motivation for getting his own kingdom first came from, and we see that it's from when he was a child. When he was a child, he would always run around in this rundown city of his, in this poverty-struck area of his where he lived, in this area where he didn't have many things, and he would fight a lot with his friends just for fun because they didn't have anything better to do. They played a lot with junk and a lot of broken toys and things like that, but when he looked up, the thing that was biggest to him, and in his words, the junk that he would get for himself would be that thing. That great kingdom that stood above him, that great castle that was so high up seemingly, was what he was going to get. And he developed the axiom where he would do anything and everything that it took to achieve that goal. And that's what he did up until this point. But if you scroll down in this chapter, Griffith begins to question this goal of his. He even goes as far as saying, have I retained my sanity? Did I go insane a long time ago? And this might be because he's questioning why. Why was this dream so important to me? Why was it so important to the point where I had to give up my entire life and end up being tortured like this all this time? And as he begins to question all of this, only one thing is clear in his mind, and that is guts. Guts is the only thing in his mind. It's not the castle, it's not the kingdom that he's always wanted, it is guts. He's the only thing shining for him, the only thing that seems to matter to him at this point. It's his friendship with Guts that matters. It's what he really cares about with Guts. Guts is the most important thing for Griffith at this point in the story. And if you think about it, this could be a reason why in chapter 364 Griffith is crying in front of Guts. This could be one of the many reasons why Griffith decides to become emotional and has emotion in front of Guts. He also continues to say that Guts was the only person that would not treat him like some noble deity, that wouldn't treat him like someone different. Everyone that Griffith met would treat him in a different way, would envision him as something of a god in a way, right? This is very obvious with Charlotte, this is very obvious with a lot of people in the Council for the Kingdom, or whatever you want to call it, but Guts was not like that. Guts more so treated Griffith as a friend, and that's where Guts separated himself from everyone else. And I think that is the reason why Guts is so important to Griffith in these chapters and moving forward in the story, because Guts was his only true friend. He was the only person that treated him as an equal and treated him as a friend. Again, it goes back to that idea of what Griffith's ideal friend is really like, someone who is his equal. So with that established in mind, once we scroll down immediately after this panel where Griffith is screaming Guts' name inside of his own head, a very interesting thing happens. So keep in mind that in this moment, Griffith envisions Guts as much as, or even possibly more than the kingdom, which was his goal the entire time. But what happens immediately after is that these four interesting figures show up. Well, it's four, but it becomes more later on. These very weird demons start showing up, and they begin to speak to Griffith. And as you scroll, these demons are none other than the four guardian angels, the Godhand themselves. This should completely confirm the fact that the Godhand are in fact manipulating Griffith. And this is what I was saying when I mentioned that Griffith was sort of wandering off his path, and the Godhand forced him back onto this path. Why would the Godhand do something like this though? Aren't they individual beings that don't really care about what other people are doing? Well, in this case, they do care about what Griffith is doing, because Griffith is crucial in Causality. He's a crucial person in the events of Causality and the events that Causality will present. And of course, as we know, the Godhand, specifically Void, are obsessed with Causality, and that is the reason why they continue to push Griffith down this path, because it is determined by destiny that Griffith will become the 5th Godhand member. And it is for that reason that the Godhand are manipulating Griffith. Had it not been for them, Griffith might have wandered off into pursuing Guts instead of pursuing the kingdom that the Godhand pushed him a little bit to pursue. If you somehow still are not convinced, then fine. Let's look at chapter 77 and 78. What do you think happens in these chapters? The Godhand take Griffith into his own memories from the past and tell him, this is you. This is who you have always been. And Void, pointing at the castle for Griffith, is literally telling him, if it is as important to you as it once was, then you will sacrifice everyone here and now. The Godhand almost forcefully make Griffith sacrifice all the Band of the Hawk members for power. And what does Griffith do right before he sacrifices everyone? He turns to Guts and says it is because Guts was more of a friend to him than anyone else, and it is because Guts is the only one who was like his own equal, who was like his true friend, and that it was only Guts who made him truly forget his dream, because Guts eventually shone brighter than the castle itself, It is because of all of these reasons that Griffith sacrificed the Band of the Hawk in order to get power and in order to fly up to his kingdom. Now, all of these events are due to causality and are due to the fact that it was destiny, and that's why Griffith eventually ended up in this situation. But if Griffith has the power that he has now, and because he is now part of the Godhand, Griffith has the ability to defy causality and to go against causality, and in doing that he will go against the Godhand. The reason Griffith will go against causality is because his dream is much bigger. He will keep soaring higher because he is the Hawk of Light. He will keep moving and keep flying higher, and in order to do that he must betray causality. Because it's not necessarily true that causality will dictate that Griffith will continue soaring higher. It is Griffith himself that will dictate and that will say, I'm going to keep going higher and higher because that is who I am. But there's another reason why Griffith is going to betray the Godhand. There's another reason why Griffith thinks it is a foolish idea to continue down the path of causality. And it's actually much simpler than you think. It's basically just because of the fact that if Griffith finds out that he was in fact being manipulated by the Godhand and that they were trying to force him into going down the path of causality, then how do you think that would make Griffith feel? In all honesty, the man would not take it lightly, that's for sure, because if all of his accomplishments would be attributed to the fact that the Godhand manipulated him, which would be what he would imagine in his own mind, right? Then he's definitely going to feel some sort of way towards the Godhand, and not a very good way. And that may be a very important reason as to why Griffith would go against the Godhand, because of the fact that he finally figured out that it was because of them that he ultimately got to where he is. Not to undermine what he's done, but in Griffith's mind, that's what he would think, I assume. So if Griffith does find out that the Godhand have been manipulating him, then he's going to eventually betray them and eventually go down a different path that does not entail the Godhand allowing him to do certain things and the Godhand helping him to do certain things. Let me know what you thought about the theory in the comments. Griffith will betray the Godhand eventually because he's going to keep soaring higher as he is the White Hawk. And I'm going to drop a part 2 continuing on this theory, and the continuation will be how Berserk will end and how it will all tie into this theory right here. If you enjoyed, like the video and subscribe if you're new because my channel is dead, and peace.